The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
The Supreme Court.
Of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The Supreme Court has upheld a law that bars domestic violence offenders from owning firearms. Now, a couple years ago, the Supreme Court really broadened the definition of the Second Amendment, and now they've been fielding additional questions about exactly how far the Second Amendment extends. But here they have upheld a law that bars someone. In this case, it was a man who was indicted on domestic violence charges. He had a protective order against him, and this case dealt with whether it was constitutional to bar him from owning a firearm. And here the Supreme Court has upheld that law, banning domestic abusers from owning guns. I mean, this is a major Second Amendment ruling from the High Court, and really one of the biggest cases that we've been watching this term.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, this is a major decision for gun control advocates, correct?
Absolutely. It's a big win for gun control advocates. It seemed to be leaning that way during oral arguments. If you listen to the questions, if you listen to some of the skepticism that some of the justices had, but this is a significant win for them. And again, like I said, 2 years ago, the Supreme Court really broadened the definition of the Second Amendment. Now they've been fielding additional questions about who can and cannot potentially own a firearm. So here, a big win for those seeking to restrict, in some cases, the right to own a firearm.
There is so much here. Okay, this is so bizarre. This is so crazy. This is so nuts. The decision that they arrived at was the correct one. I'm going to explain to you who Zacky Rahimi is in this case, okay? It's the Rahimi case. Why is it called that? Because there's a person. His name is Zacky Rahimi, and he happens to have been a drug dealer. Oh, yes. So the Supreme Court decided to take a case of a domestic abuser. Wait till you hear, like, everything that he did, okay? It's like, what? Wow. And decided that they would take his case so that they could decide whether or not somebody who beats their girlfriend in a parking lot and then shoots at a witness who saw him beat his girlfriend in a parking lot and smash her head against the car as he pushed her into it, shot at a witness, could still have a gun. Okay, this is not all he ever did, okay? His ex-partner, with whom he shares a child, okay, she got the restraining order after that incident. That incident in a Texas parking lot in 2019. He knocked his partner, the baby's mother, to the ground, dragged her. Do you remember the story? Dragged her to the car, pushed her inside, causing her to knock her head on the dashboard, and then fired a shot from his gun in the direction of a witness who saw it. Okay. Plus, after she got the protective order and it was in place, this man, the drug dealer, Zacky Rahimi, was implicated in a series of shootings. One in which he fired bullets into a house of a former client, somebody who bought drugs from him, with an AR-15 while he was under a restraining order. And then there were state charges in another domestic assault and a completely separate assault case against a different woman. There was a question in this country about whether or not he should have a gun. There was a question. And it was such a difficult question that it had to go all the ways to the Supremes, had to go all the way there. And when I told you about it, I couldn't freaking believe it. But the reason why they said they had to take it is because judges on the ground, okay, are confused. They're confused by this Bruin decision that says everyone can have a gun anytime, anywhere, outside the home. It's not just for home protection anymore. Why? It's suitable for domestic abusers. Drug dealers can have them. People with ARs can shoot into their ex-client's house. People who beat women and then in separate assault cases, also beat women. If you're under a domestic violence restraining, why? You can still have it. That's a question in the mind of some judges in this country because the Supreme Court, in a case known as Bruin, said everyone can have a gun all the time because we can't find anything in the Constitution when it was written that prohibited anybody from having a gun. Something tells me they don't know how to read. I don't know why this is so difficult. Why is this so hard to find in the Constitution? You know, the Second Amendment is one of the most provisional amendments we've ever had. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary, so provided that a well-regulated militia is necessary to the preservation of your state's freedom, which is going away incrementally. Half the population in 21 states don't have free states in which they can toil and live. But it's a provisional amendment, meaning the preservation of your free state depends on you having a well-regulated militia in place. I don't see Mr. Rahimi being well-regulated. I don't see anybody in the drug cartels being well-regulated. I don't see abusers of women being well-regulated. I don't see them mustering. I don't see them showing that their gun is in good working order and nice and clean and oiled. And, I don't see any of that happening, but they can't find in the original documents, the founding documents, anything that would prevent anyone from having... And so they had to hear this case because judges on the ground don't know what to make of their ruling in Bruin that says we can't find anything in the Constitution that prohibits anybody from having a gun. Therefore, everyone can have a gun. And so judges are going, even a guy who has this history. And by the way, Mr. Zaki Rahimi, here's the thing. He pled guilty, okay? He entered into a plea agreement because the amount of criming that he did was so intense. It was so unbelievably over the top. And the evidence was just wow. And so he entered into a plea deal. And for doing all of this, okay, he got 6 years. 6 years. And so then once he was in the jail, they appealed it to what they call the Fighting Fifth, which is a bunch of sick, conservative, Trump-appointed weirdos, okay? The Chief Justice is a Trump appointee. He's very bizarre, this guy. And he can't find anything in the original founding documents that would say that a guy who does violence to other people should not have a gun. He was very confused. And so, at first he said, well, maybe he shouldn't, maybe he shouldn't. Then, after Bruin, he said, maybe we should give him back his gun. Maybe he's right. Maybe we should let him out of jail. Maybe we got this one right. And that's why it went to the Supreme Court. When there's the contretemps in the lower courts, right? So he pled out. The Fifth Circuit ruled against him. And then later, when they did the Bruin decision, they ruled for him. And that's why it had to go to the Supreme Court. In case you were wondering, why is this a question? Because I was. Why is this why is this hard? Why do people take easy calls and make them hard and then have the nerve to stand there, look me straight in the eye and tell me we're all about morals? We're all about law and order. We're all about right and wrong. We need to put the 10 Commandments in the classrooms because that's what we're about. Really? Your nominee, I don't think he upholds any of those. Not even the graven image, okay? He had a golden Trump. Remember that? It really upset Brett. The golden statue that was wheeled into one of the RNC conventions, right? I mean, it was like he was wearing
a literal golden idol.
A golden idol. But adultery, bearing false witness against E.G. Carroll and others. I mean, but they have the nerve to jam that down your throat. Anyway, I want you to remember this. In the Constitution, only property owners could vote. Remember that? There's really no right to vote. And also during the day, back in the day, you do understand that we went over this on Juneteenth. African Americans couldn't own guns. They weren't allowed to have them. Neither were Native Americans allowed to own guns. No, they weren't. So I don't think they're looking hard enough. I don't think they read.
things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I mean, who wouldn't want to live next door to Zaki Rahimi? Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't, relish the idea of having, him as a neighbor with guns? Because, there's no reason to take his guns away. There just isn't. What I cannot believe this actually had to make its way to the Supreme Court. I can't believe that we have a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, okay, that deals with Texas and Louisiana and, forget the other state that it handles, that is so in the tank for, everybody in the world, including drug dealers and spousal abusers, that there's nothing preventing them from ever having a gun in their possession. They really believe that. They actually stood by that decision, let it go all the way to the Supreme Court, who had to say, well, there's really the way that, they I think Roberts wrote it, and he said something like, the idea that you would keep guns out of the hands of violent peoples, it fits comfortably. It fits comfortably with our understanding of the founding. That's how they decided this, okay? It has to fit comfortably in their understanding of the founding. Now, if it's only going to be their understanding of the founding, which is why this is important, because, it's bizarre that this was a thing, okay, that it had to be decided, because I don't know if you understand just how violent this guy is, okay, but it's not just that he beat his wife or his girlfriend and slammed her head against the dashboard and then fired at a witness, his gun fired at a witness who could have, dropped a dime on him, or that he's a drug dealer, or that he used an AR-15 to shoot into one of his clients' houses. But there's much, much more about his behavior, and this is why the plea deal 6 years is going to seem kind of puny. He had opened fire in public, okay? I think we have a little problem with, mass shootings and stuff like this, and public shootings, to the point where when one happens in a city, Fox News has to cover every little granular detail about what happened in the city. But when it happens in Texas, there's no coverage about Mr. Zaki Rahimi at all. But he had opened up fire in public 5 separate times. One time, he was upset about, wait for it, a social media post. Yeah. He was upset about a social media post that was posted by someone that he sold drugs to, okay? He also got upset inside of a fast food restaurant. I don't know, Luby's comes screaming to mind when we're talking about Texas and mass shootings, but a fast food restaurant had declined a friend of his. Oh, must be a very special person to be friends with such a wonderful man, Zaki Rahimi. Actually declined his credit card. His credit card failed to clear the machine, okay? And when the fast food worker actually said, I'm sorry, but your card didn't clear, Mr. Rahimi fired several bullets inside the fast food restaurant. He only fired in the air, everybody. Let's not parse, okay? Let's not be super specific and say you have to actually aim it at somebody in order to be, I don't know, upsetting to me or to you or to anybody else in the fast food restaurant. Shooting at the ceiling is fine. Well, it wasn't. The shooting in that fast food restaurant, well, actually, all of the shootings, there were 5 public shootings. 5 times he opened fire in public. And so finally, a search warrant was issued. Yeah, a search warrant. And when they went to Mr. Rahimi's house, they uncovered almost entire arsenal, like a whole armory full. In this weird way, he was more in line with being a militia member than he was not being one. So in this weird way, maybe you could carve out that he's inside of a militia. I don't know about well-regulated. It depends on the condition of his weapons. Were they clean? Were they tidy? Were they earled? You know what I'm saying? Was his ammunition neatly in rows? Was it in a pouch? The way it's supposed to be according to the militia inspection, documents that do exist. Back from the day, they do exist. But anyway, when they uncovered the weapons, he was charged with violating a federal law that makes it a crime for people who were subject to domestic violence orders to possess guns. He used the Second Amendment to challenge that finding, and the judge rejected it. Then he pled guilty because 5 different times he was, opening fire in public, which I don't care under any reading of any law, including Texas's. You can't just do that, I don't think. I mean, maybe soon. Maybe soon. Maybe. But the Fifth Circuit at the time said, no, you really can't. You can't have an arsenal in your house when you're under a restraining order for domestic violence. You really can't. I don't know what happened to like the other 5 public shootings. Why that didn't cross the radar. Why that didn't make it like somebody who should lose his privileges. His I don't know But at first they said no. His convictions are okay. His conviction is within constitutional Second Amendment boundaries. And then, after the Bruin decision, in 2023, they reversed it. They literally reversed it. And they repeated what the Supreme Court said. You must use early American history as a guide. I have 2 words, bump stock. Really? I'm trying to do what they're telling me to do. I'm trying to be a law-abiding person here. I'm trying to understand the world in which I toil, in which I live, in which I have to defend my home and hearth. Bump stock? I have to return to early American history as a guide. Large capacity magazine, that's more than 2 words. But bump stock does it for me. It brings up all the questions that I think that you should have.
I feel like the bump stock was crucial in our Western expansion, Randy. I don't know what you're talking about. Crucial.
Remember you said Western expansion. Okay, because when you say Western expansion, you're thinking of west of the Mississippi, yes?
Sure.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about yes, west of the Mississippi. Well, that's normal. That's totally that's the sign of somebody that made it all the way through high school. Do you know what I mean? I'm not even one of those. So
barely.
Yeah, I didn't. So don't feel less than. You still, if you have a high school diploma, I mean, I have a proficiency. Is what I have. It's not much. But remember, you think, and I did too until today, that the Western expansion was west of the Mississippi. Well, today, I'm reviewing this 10 Commandments case, down there in Louisiana where, it must be posted and everything. And one of the things they're citing is just what you said, the Western expansion, Northwestern expansion, to be completely specific about it. Except that in those days, the Northwestern expansion was Ohio. It was Ohio and Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana, which I just learned today. I mean, come on. God.
Call in, connect. Speak to Randy. Call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Oh, my God. There's never an egg timer around when you need one. So I look up at the TV now, and it says 9 shot, 2 dead in Arkansas grocery store shooting. And the grocery store seems to be in between a gas station named Karma and a butcher called the Mad Butcher. I mean, this is like...
You absolutely cannot write that. Considering what we were just discussing, you look up and that's what you see?
Karma? Mad Butcher? Of course he could have a gun, the shooter. Of course he can. My God, there's nothing in the early documents that would say that the man who shot 8 people in an Arkansas grocery store today and killed 2 shouldn't have a gun. Of course, this is what the founding fathers wanted for us. This is what they intended. They're all part of a well-regulated militia, right? They all are. They're all reporting for muster. They're all, showing their weapons for inspection every month or every week or however the militia is constructed in Arkansas. Holy crap, man. I'm telling you right now. So there's going to be a press conference. The police are going to do a press conference soon to try and figure out, like, who this shooter is. Like, how did this shooter get away? And, we'll find out, he was legally purchased his gun. He legally did. There's no question about it. And Judge Corey T. Wilson, everybody, on the Fifth Circuit, who's in charge of this area of our country, same area that, said that Mr. Rahimi, his Second Amendment rights were violated when, they said he couldn't have a gun because of his restraining order. He couldn't have a gun. They said that was anti-constitutional because there was nothing in the early American documents that would prevent him from having that gun. So therefore, it had to go to the Supreme. I'm sure the same court, same judge, Corey T. Wilson, who wrote for the panel, disarmed classes of people considered to be dangerous, specifically including those unwilling to take an oath of allegiance, slaves, and Native Americans, are different from domestic violence orders because they go case by case. Well, I don't even know, like, and it's really, it's like, This was his rationale. Like, I'm serious. I know the media doesn't explain any of these cases to you. I know they're just saying Rahimi, and you're like, no, what is a Rahimi? What is it? Is it a thing? Is it a person? Is it a place? What is it? Why is this case, U.S. versus Rahimi? Why? Well, because he's a person. His name's Zaki Rahimi, okay? And so this is what Judge Wilson, who was appointed by President Trump, wrote about insisting that Mr. Rahimi should have a gun. Okay. He said that the government's insistence that it could disarm people who were not law abiding. Yes, that is basically what my position would be, that the government should, not could, but should disarm people who are not law abiding. Honestly, he said that admits to no true limiting principle. Okay, so he said, if you say anyone who breaks any law, which is not what's being said in this case at all, this guy is committing felonies one after the other after the other. This guy is, open season in public places. This guy is shooting at inside of, fast food restaurants when a credit card is declined. This guy goes out shooting with an AR-15 when he doesn't like something that somebody said to him on social media. This guy is a menace. This guy is committing felonies, okay? But these are the examples that Mr. Judge Corey T. Wilson used to say you have to have a limiting principle. You can't just disarm people who are not law-abiding because, he said, can speeders be stripped of their right to keep and bear arms? What about political nonconformists? I'm sorry, is non-conforming political, a rationale somehow now a felony? Is it somehow a crime now? Or are they building up to that? Because this is one of his examples. He said, the government's insistence that it could disarm people who are not law-abiding admits to no true limiting principle. Could speeders be stripped of their right to keep and bear arms? Political nonconformists? People who do not recycle? People who drive an electric vehicle, can they be stripped of their right to keep and bear arms? What kind of reasoning is this? I want to say the S word because that's what it is. It's turd. It's duty. It's dung. This is not reasoning. This is grasping. This is just flailing. This isn't even something that a judge should be doing, saying, thinking, writing, let alone he put his name on it. I find this man, this judge, I find almost every Trump-appointed judge that I have read about or am being forced to learn about or experience, like Aileen Cannon, for instance, and then this here dude, Judge Corey T. Wilson, over there on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. I'm finding them insulting. You should find this very insulting. What kind of a country are we becoming? This is insanity. This is absolutely the most bizarre attempt at an analogy that I've ever seen in my life, let alone, I mean, the LSATs ask, questions about, logic, reason, managing facts and which is more like, is this orange more like the round circle or is this orange more like the square circle? Do you know what I mean? That's what the law exam, to get into law school requires, that you have the ability to draw, analogies. You can see the similarities between things. What is similar about a political nonconformist and someone who isn't law-abiding? What is similar? Nothing. Okay, he said the approach required by the Bruin decision did not allow the courts to weigh the benefits of the law against the burdens. What was significant, he wrote, is that, quote, and this is where he falls in line, our ancestors would never have accepted the law on domestic violence orders. That's right. Our wife-beating ancestors would never have accepted any law that prohibited beating your wife. That part is true enough. But this is why it's important, because trust me, people, this is where they want to go back to. Every time they say that every decision they make is going to be routed in the early American experience, trust me, they're talking about all of it. Beating your wife, contraception, gay marriage, modern families, common law wives, common law husbands, no-fault divorce. Seriously, out-of-wedlock births. I mean, Hester Prynne tried to tell you something all those years ago with her little Scarlet A. She tried to explain to you. Pearl was born out of love. Okay. Cope and deal. Oh, my God.
Clear. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, my God. All right. 3:48 on a Friday. Friday, everybody's Friday, you bastards. Jim in Las Vegas.
Yes, Randy. The six fake electors here, Republicans, were just let go by the judge because she said it wasn't filed in Carson City, even though it was filed in Las Vegas, where these guys were.
I know, Jim, when you called, we went and looked for it to see if that's like a real thing. And it is. It happened. So just explain. Let's explain to people who haven't looked it up yet, but will, what happened. So here's what happened. A state court in Nevada was on, they were trying 6 of the fake electors, okay, the people who said that they were the duly selected electors, and they were going to throw Nevada to Donald Trump, who lost Nevada. There was a criminal indictment, meaning a grand jury heard their case and a grand jury indicted them, saying, yeah, these are the documents they signed and this was illegal and they need to go on trial. It was 6 Republican fake electors. They submitted certificates to Congress, falsely declaring that they were the duly selected electors. Okay, took us all this time now. What year is it now? That happened in 2020. What year is it now, everybody? What year is it now? Pretend we're all in the home, okay? And they're saying, Rand, what day of the week is it? It's Friday, you bastards. Right. And what year is it? 2024. Right. When did this happen? 2020. Why? Why did it take 4 years? Okay, I'll tell you why. Statute of limitations is 3. Okay, so 4 years it took to get this into court, and the judge, a right-wing lunatic fringy lady, just threw it out. Threw it out. Said, you're done. You're done. And that she killed it. And what was her reasoning? Wrong venue, just as the caller said. Wrong venue. You filed it in the wrong part of Nevada. It's a state crime. I mean, they went to Amarillo, Texas, to go get Judge Kazmarek, remember him, in order to get mifepristone somewhat so that doctors couldn't prescribe mifepristone. Guys in freaking Amarillo, Texas, they judge shop so hard looking for him. FDA's in D.C., not a problem. But here, Carson City, Clark County, it's a wrong venue. You filed it in the wrong place. The Attorney General of Nevada is a guy named Aaron Ford, and he stood in that courtroom in Las Vegas today, Clark County. He stood there, and just like a second after this judge threw out the case, Judge Mary Kay, I would suggest that's a better career for her, Judge Mary Kay Holthus delivered her ruling declaring that the case was filed in the wrong venue. She's throwing it out. And Aaron Ford, the Attorney General, he said, I'm taking this to the Supreme Court. We're going to appeal this, okay? And he said, the judge got it wrong. We're going to appeal immediately. The defense attorneys who were representing these 6 liars, these 6 fake electors, these 6 insurrectionists, these 6 liars who lied under penalty of perjury, declared themselves the winner of a free and fair election that they lost, okay? She said, the defense attorney said, oh, this case is dead. To bring the case now to another grand jury in another venue, such as Carson City, which is where she's saying you had to bring it because that's the capital, would violate the 3-year statute of limitations on filing charges that expired in December.
Do you think knowing this might be how it played out beforehand would have given them some of the confidence to go ahead with this, some of these fake electors, if they played it out and were like, look, this is how it's going to work, the statute of limitations is going to run out, we're going to get a friendly judge.
The fake electors? No but this is what is happening inside of our judicial system. This is what's happening inside of our legal system, okay? You have Trump-appointed right-wing insane judges who attack prosecutors now, or who attack grand juries now, or who attack facts now, or who hold hearings in order to drag out cases past an election. See, this is why we had to talk about Aileen Cannon today. I told you yesterday, she is having 3 days of these wackadoodle hearings, the hearings that would have been thrown out in any other court. Now, you want to talk about venue. She's sitting over in Fort Pierce. That's on the opposite side of the state of Florida where the crime occurred. The crime occurred on the east coast of Florida, like 5 miles away from my house, okay, on the east coast of Florida. She's sitting on the west coast of Florida, okay, listening to this case about MAGAloco on the east coast. Nobody has a problem with the venue, okay, because they got the judge they wanted. Aileen Cannon is having hearings today about whether or not Jack Smith is legally appointed. The argument goes something like this, and it's been defeated, over the early American history, clearly shows that appointing a special prosecutor is fine. You could go back to the founding. I don't really care. It's there. But they're going to argue, and they have argued all day today, and this is really offensive, that Jack Smith, who is an inferior officer to the Attorney General of the United States, right? He's the top guy, the Attorney General of the United States, the Department of Justice, okay, the AG, Merrick Garland. He has all the authority he needs, and every Attorney General in the United States history has had the authority to appoint inferior officers to him, okay, without having to go through Senate confirmation. They're arguing that Jack Smith needed Senate confirmation. Where are they getting this? They're pulling it out of their rectum. Nearly killed him. And so this is what she's hearing today. It is so upsetting and so bizarre that in anybody else's courtroom, this would have been disposed of months and months ago. In fact, don't you remember Jack Smith actually went to her and said, let's figure out, right now, whether or not, there's any objections, any kind of, challenges you're going to make. Let's just take it all to the Supreme Court now and get rulings. Before she wouldn't do it, but now and what's really upsetting, she's hearing people who aren't party to this case. She's literally hearing these not-for-profit organizations. She's taking them into her courtroom and letting them, basically the Supreme Court takes amicus briefs, right, from dark money groups. This is what Sheldon Whitehouse was able to show us, expose to us, that not only do they fund these cases, but they also line up and write amicus briefs. They hire lawyers to write friend of the court briefs saying, why that they think, that a domestic violence abuser ought to be able to have a gun, right? Because if you go back to early American history, right, our ancestors would never have accepted a law preventing spousal abuse. And that is what the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled. Okay, so this is where we are. So she's doing this. She's doing this just to delay the trial even further, just to keep it from happening. And now she's taking people who aren't party to the case. She's letting them come into her court in freaking Fort Pierce, which is a podunk town, okay, to make their case to her. They have no... They're not defendants, they're not plaintiffs, they're not anything. They're just people who have opinions, that are representing moneyed elite. Okay, coming into her court, and she's hearing these things. She's allowing them to make their case in front of her. She's going to consider whether or not they have a point that Jack Smith needed Senate confirmation. What the? And it's going to continue for another 3 days. Okay? She did this all this afternoon. She's done now. They will reconvene on Monday and Tuesday. She's going to do 3 more days of hearings. 3 more days. Just to delay. This is what happened in Nevada. I mean, they've all learned. Attack the prosecutor. Delay the case. Attack the prosecutor. Delay the case, and if it actually goes forward, attack the prosecutor. This is what happened with Bonnie Willis. Okay, this is what happened with Jack Smith. This is what's happening now with Jack Smith. They're attacking the prosecutor. There is a pattern here, and it seems like it's a big gaping hole in our legal system. And instead of saying we have a big gaping hole in our legal system, they're making the hole bigger. Big enough to drive a Mack truck through. Now I understand what that expression actually means. Instead of closing loopholes, they're making them giant tunnels.
Mary had a little ram.
The fault. We believe that all men.
This is one of the bills that to the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
This is one of the bills that got the press over here.
It is?
I think so. This bill mandates the display of the 10 Commandments in every classroom in public, elementary, secondary, and post-education schools in the state of Louisiana. Amen.
Uh-oh.
Because if you want to respect the rule of law, you got to start from the original lawgiver, which was Moses.
That's right.
Amen. All right.
God gave, Moses received.
That's right. He got his commandments from God.
Oh, good God.
All right.
All right. Okay, so that's Governor Landry signing a bill to mandate the 10 Commandments be posted in every single classroom. There's much more to that bill than we ever even thought of. But the reason why I played that for you is because, did you see the little girl just pass out? Did you? No? Oh,
this is one of the bills that got the press over here.
It is?
It is?
Mm-hmm. This bill mandates the display of the 10 Commandments in every classroom in public, elementary, secondary, and post-education schools in the state of Louisiana. Amen.
Watch. Oh, now down she goes.
Because if you want to respect the rule of law, you got to start from the original lawgiver, which was Moses.
That's right.
Amen. All right.
Amen.
God gave, Moses received.
God gave, Moses
He got his
received.
commandments from God.
Yes, he did.
Suitable for us. All right.
We're all Jews now. They don't even realize that a little girl right behind the governor, love thy neighbor as yourself, you know what I mean? That just collapsed right behind him. That's just, I think, I know exactly how she feels. I totally can relate to her. It's just like watching this shooting now in Arkansas, right on the heels of the Supreme Court saying bump stocks are fine, domestic violence can't find. Domestic violence, I don't think the founders would have, been okay with any law that outlawed beating your wife. We don't see it in early American history. That was the lower court's ruling. That's why it had to go all the way up to the Supremes, who said, wait, I don't think they're ready for this. I don't think they're ready. So we're going to buy some time here and say a guy who opened fire in public 5 different times, a guy who opened fire because his friend's credit card was declined in a fast food restaurant, a guy who opened fire who is a drug dealer who was upset with something social media posted about him, and went to somebody's house and used an AK or an AR and, shot his AR-15 through the windows of the house of his ex-client. I don't think they're ready to say that he could have a gun. So we're going to say, not right now. Bump stocks, fine. Early American history, of course, they went on and on. George Washington crossing the Delaware, of course, he went on and on about the value of a bump stock. Oh, and by the way, I need to show you this because I don't know how many people, decent people anyway, I don't know how many people know what a bump stock is or how it works or what it looks like or what it does or how it accelerates, the amount of, munitions you can, dispose of, with a gun. I don't think people understand that like a $2 piece of plastic, like what it actually can do. So I found a shooter who was trying one out, okay, on YouTube. And so I thought I would play it for you so you could see what a bump stock is.
So watch here as I'm expecting that.
No, nobody really was. Nobody that didn't know what a bump stock did was really expecting that. The slow-mo didn't seem so bad, I have to say. I'm like, slow-mo's okay. It's just like, all right. So, but it's too much work to have to pull the trigger so many times, so the bump stock actually does it for you. The recoil of the gun actually allows the gun to become an automatic machine gun. And I'm sure, I'm 100% sure, I mean, check me if you don't believe me, but I'm 100% sure that the founding fathers thought that was like just a fantastic thing.
If the founding fathers saw that, they'd pass out. They would reconsider everything.
So, during the break, I went into the kitchen to go get myself a nice fresh cup of coffee, and I thought about the question you asked about the fake electors that we were just discussing, and you said, did they expect that, the lawyers or that they could delay? But you know what they expected, Brett? And, sometimes we're just so obviously stupid, you and me. What they expected was that Trump would win. Yeah.
This was an impossibility what's happening now because Trump was going to win for sure.
Especially
if
they lied, especially if they cheated, especially if they stole it.
If we do this, then he'll win. It's a no-brainer.
There you go. So I feel better
you're
now.
Right. You're right.
We figured it out. All right, Gary in Fort Lauderdale.
Hey, Randy.
Hi.
I don't think that little girl fell out. I think that was the Holy Spirit entering her body.
Amen.
From that holy experience that they just had about the 10 Commandments.
See how thrilled the governor was that the media showed up?
Jeez.
It was so
and that
excited.
bump stock thing.
Oh my God.
That's going to kill a lot of people.
Hey man, I'm sure it was part of the early American history of ammunition and muskets and gunpowder.
Flintlocks.
Yeah, flintlocks.
Yeah. Ramming that stick in the barrel of the gun and putting a ball in, and it takes about 5 minutes to shoot, Randy, we're in a heap of trouble. I'll tell you.
We're in bad water, man.
We really are. We're screwed every which way, I'll tell you. All right, have a good weekend.
All right, love you. Bye. It's so true. If we don't do something seriously different in this election, if we don't wake the F up like right freaking now and just say, oh my God, who knew that this was what they were for? Who knew? If we don't make some changes, like radical ones to the Senate where they confirm these psycho judges, okay? If we don't forget the South, okay? Forget them. Because they don't pick the president. You know this, right? Okay, so let's just divorce ourselves from the South for a brief moment, okay? Because Louisiana's not going to pick the president. Mississippi's not going to pick the president. Texas isn't going to pick the president. I wish Texas would be in play. I really wish it would be. But Texas is not going to pick the president. Arkansas is not going to pick the president. You know who's going to pick the president is Wisconsin. Like 10,000 voters there and 12,000 voters in Nevada and 10,000 voters in Arizona and 11,000 voters in Michigan. That's who's picking the president. You understand that. This is who we're talking to. This is who I'm trying to talk to. This is who I need to talk to. If you know someone in any of those places whose vote is still up for grabs, please tell them, send them my way. That's all I'm asking for you to do. I'm not asking for you to do any of the heavy lifting. I'm not asking for you to do any of the splaining. I'm not asking for you to do voter registration. I'm not asking you to do any of it. Just send them my way. That's all I'm asking, okay? Because we are at this moment in time where everything will change if we don't wake up now, right now. We only have 5 months.
On TV.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I have a lot of conversations with former colleagues, people who are or were in the intelligence and law enforcement community and may have worked in, the Obama administration, other places. And, people are really trying to assess, what is life going to be like if Donald Trump wins a second term? And on a very personal level, I mean, these are torturous discussions with their family members about whether or not they have to leave the country to avoid being unconstitutionally and illegally detained. I mean, people are actually worried about being thrown in jail or grabbed in some sort of extrajudicial detention. And I think, as crazy as this sounds in the United States of America, I think people should really consider that these are possibilities.
And McCabe, you should be worried. You should be very worried. But also understand this, brother. We have extradition treaties with virtually every country in the world, and you go ahead and run as far as you want. We're going to come and get you.
Oh! That's where we are. That's where we are. Steve Bannon, a guy who has to report to jail in less than 2 weeks, okay? He tried today to, get a judge to say he didn't have to report that. The judge said, you have to report to jail. Bye-bye. Okay, so Steve Bannon, who is a convicted felon, who was pardoned by Donald Trump for ripping off his own people, his own viewers, his own audience with the We Build the Wall scam, okay? With a disabled veteran, okay? And kept the freaking money, Colthage, kept the money, needed a pardon from Donald Trump, got a pardon from Donald Trump, has now got to report to jail for another crime that he committed, okay, which was called contempt of Congress, refusing to, respond in any way to a congressional subpoena to produce documents and testimony, has to go to jail. And he's now threatening the former director of the FBI, who is saying people in this government, people who work in the intelligence community, people who work in law enforcement, in the FBI, in the Department of Justice, at the DNI, at the CIA, we're all talking to each other, and we're all saying, "Oh my God, if Trump wins, we have to leave the country because he's going to round us all up." Because he says he's into retribution. He says he's going to use the Department of Justice and take the independence that the Department of Justice has under, the Attorney General now, and move it into the executive branch and make sure he's the Attorney General. Donald Trump is, okay? And he's going to order the arrest of all of his political enemies should he win. So he said a lot of people understand what the threat is. A lot of people understand, that they're going to be retaliated against by Donald Trump with the full force of the United States government behind him. And so we're talking about leaving the country. And, we're trying to decide like where we should go. Steve Bannon hears this and actually chimes in and says, listen to me, buddy, brother. We'll hunt you down like the dog you are. We have extradition. He's talking about international crimes now, international criminal behavior, where he's going to send out the American law enforcement agencies to countries overseas, countries in Europe or countries in Africa or countries in Asia where we have extradition treaties, and retrieve these people and bring them back to the United States. And I doubt he means to stand trial. I think he envisions, Bannon does, because, it's victory or death, which is kind of the bet that I think we're taking right now. Victory or death. I think he has these visions of people up against a wall or people hanging from cranes a la Iran. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's talking about, duly selected, jury members and trying facts about whether or not Andy McCabe needs the death penalty. I just don't see that as the end of his thought process there, where he says, we're going to come and get you. We're going to come and get you. You're going to have to sit there and figure out whether or not this is the kind of country you want to live in. Because that's why Andy McCabe brought this up in the first place. Okay?
These are things he's been saying forever. We know that Donald Trump and his friend are, these are people who are obsessed with personal grievance and settling scores. Their entire way of thinking about leading and administering this country is in the context of having been wronged and trying to engender support among their supporters by, throwing this kind of red meat out to people who are who respond to this sort of language. So we shouldn't be surprised by it at all. They're both paranoid old men, one of whom is on his way to jail, and the other one, we'll see, that might happen for him as well. So that part doesn't surprise me. What's really, to me, shocking and disgusting about the rhetoric is what it says about who we are becoming as a nation, and the fact that a person who is, quite possibly the next president of the United States is engaging in this level of absolutely fundamentally anti-democratic rhetoric and behavior and ideation. Everything he says stands in direct contrast to the nation that we think we are, the nation that we have always been. But I think people have got to start asking themselves, is this the direction that we want to go? Is this the country that we're becoming, a place where an incoming president takes the levers of power and uses them for his own gratification to pursue enemies?
So, when I say it, it's like, oh, well, she's a hyperbolic talk show host. Do you know what I mean? When I say it, it's like, oh, well, Randy, you can try that, see how that works out for yourself, because I haven't really been wrong all that much in, 20-some years. But when Andy McCabe, who is a button-down law and order former deputy director of the FBI, is telling you that this is not the direction you want to be going in. This isn't anything that you will recognize about the country you think you live in. If you have a president with the full force of the United States government behind him, including the military, including, the National Guard, including law enforcement, including, local law enforcement, which is what he's talking about using, you understand, with this Project 25 crap and deploying people in cities and, us walking up and down the street to try and get to the bus, under armed guards, uniformed, I hate to say police, but, police or military or uniformed military. It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable. But that's what they're signaling they want to do. It's what's in Project 2025. I mean, the idea of using the National Guard, which Donald Trump has told crowds lately, that he would use the National Guard and deploy them to cities to round people up. And he's saying, oh, it'll be migrants. It usually starts that way. Yeah, but who's gonna like that? Who's gonna applaud that? Right, not you.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
In the conservatives' own mind, in the Republican-owned groupthink, they're on their revenge tour. Right? Because from the Republican perspective, the court has been acting like a super legislator in the 60s when it ended segregation, when we had the civil rights era and all that kind of stuff, right? And so they think they have made a false equivalency between treating black people and women as people with like, let's put the 10 Commandments back into school, like it's that kind of topsy-turvy thing. But they think that they are getting their revenge on the 1960s and 1970s. They're wrong, but one of the reasons why they're wrong is because this idea that the Warren Court kind of superseded elected majorities in the South is kind of wrong when you remember that the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act were broadly popular. And passed through the democratic process, not the Supreme Court process. That's the part of the story that Republicans always seem to forget. If they could pass a law banning abortion, if they could pass a law allowing anybody and their mother to own guns, I'd like to see them try. They would lose elections. But because they would lose elections that way, that's why they've gone to their conservative buddies at the Supreme Court.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Most Americans are not down with the conservative agenda. Most Americans do not want to see the military in San Francisco on the streets. They don't want to see the military in New York. They don't want to see the military in L.A. Okay, most Americans are not going to be cool with this. They're not going to be down with this, and they're going to all sit there and go, oh, "I should have voted. Oh, damn." Now, the idea that there could be legislation that would ban abortion, don't let that be lost on you either, but it would be very, very, very unpopular. But right now we have a situation where Wyoming with, I don't know, let's be very generous, 2 million people total, Wyoming. Let's say 4 million. Let's just say that. It's probably wrong, but 4 million is a very generous population count for Wyoming. California, 44 million. 44. 2 senators, California. 2 senators, Wyoming. How is this okay? It's not okay. And this is why we have minority rule in this country. None of this is popular. How much?
Wyoming's actually looks like the most least populated state in the union with only 581,000 people.
Not even 1 million people in the whole state?
Not even 1 million people in the whole state.
Costa Rica has more people than Wyoming. Wow, because they have 4 million. And it's a tiny, teeny place. But anyway, most people are not going to be okay with this. They're just not going to be good with this. So the best way to avoid this is to prevent this. The best way to not have to go through this is to not let this happen. And it's real simple. All you got to do is vote for the other old man. You got 2 guys. One has integrity. One is decent. One is trying and doing not a bad job at improving the lives of the middle class in this country. One is very, the border situation, 25% reduction in encounters at the border. Encounters. It's not even happening anymore. Okay? It's not. And you're going to have another guy whose solution to this problem is to mass deport millions and millions and millions of people who have been here for more than 10 years, millions and millions and millions of people who have been here for more than 20 years, and not expect to see the supply chain broken again? You understand what's going to happen, don't you? If Trump gets his way, not only are you going to be faced with the military staring you down in Los Angeles and freaking Midtown Manhattan, but you're also going to have a labor shortage. Supply chains will just break. Just break like they did during COVID. Demand will remain the same, though. Supply will go down. What do you think that does to the price you pay at the grocery store? What do you think that does to the price you pay anywhere for anything? What do you think it'll do? So the South is sitting there going, hey, man, I'd love to go refight the Civil War. I'd love to go back in time. I want to go back to what the founding fathers said. Property owners only. Women have no rights in this country. They are chattel. They can't even have a credit card. They can't even own a house. They can't do anything on their own. No contraception. You're here to birth some babies. That's what you're here for. I want to go back to those days. I do. Well, you understand that an egg is going to cost you $9. You okay with that? Yeah, I didn't think so. You better think this through. You better think this through. Because there's a price to be paid for barbaric behavior. That's number one. But there's, and that price will be paid by your soul. I don't care how many 10 Commandments. Oh, so before I forget, the 10 Commandments bill, holy crap. The version of the 10 Commandments. Remember yesterday I was wondering, like, what language would it be in? Would they do it in the original Hebrew? Would they do it in the Greek translation? Maybe the English? Turns out that the version that they want to put on the wall in the classroom in Louisiana isn't from the Bible. No, it's not. Seriously, they just made it up. The bill has its own version that all schools are required to follow. That version is not taken from any translation of the Bible. No translation. Instead, it pulled from a 2006 Supreme Court case called Van Orden versus Perry that you may remember. It involved a monument on public land featuring text that was offered from a group called the Fraternal Order of Eagles. The Fraternal Order of Eagles, where they got their divine interpretation of what the 10 Commandments is, no one knows. But that's the version that has to be in the classroom. Protestants and Catholics are beside themselves. They are so pissed. So I said, we're all Jews now. That's it. And in case you had the idea, okay, we could post it in a classroom on the head of a pin. No, it has a minimum size requirement. I do too. 11 by 14. And readable font. Readable font. Like, is there a font that captures the burning bush? Is there? I don't know, because that's where they talked, God and Moses. That's where they communicated at the burning bush. The burning bush was actually talking. You understand that?
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Fake news, CNN. It's all fake. Fake tapper, CNN. We're going to find out next week.
At the debate?
Yes, absolutely. He's going to cook him. Just shred him.
Yeah.
Just like a turkey.
What do you want Trump to say to CNN next week?
Just expose them. Just expose them for the fraud they are.
And what specifically have they lied about?
I don't know. I don't watch it.
Right. Well, you got a shirt that's just peeing on it and you called it fake news. So what specifically have they lied about? What makes them fake news?
I don't know. I don't watch it. I watch Fox News.
Right. But you called them fake news. Why do you think they're fake news? What are they saying that's fake?
Border.
All right, there you have it.
There you have it. You think that guy will vote? You think he will? I don't know. See, this is what happens when you ask a caller, right, who wants to talk to me, who says, if Trump doesn't win, the corruption continues, right? And so I say, listen, I don't want to embarrass anybody. I don't want to, have to yell at somebody. I just, it's not really something I totally enjoy. It makes me feel bad, believe it or not, to diminish somebody and to demoralize them in public. So make sure the guy knows what he's going to ask him. What corruption will continue. You ask one question, they fall apart.
Totally fell apart. And Gary, you're a coward. I asked, he basically said that, and he was dead serious, that all this corruption
What corruption? This is what I want to know.
All the corruption will not end until Trump gets back in the White House. And I said, well, what corruption, sir?
Yeah.
He said, well, Biden sold out the country. I said, how do you do that? How do you do that? Let me know.
So let me just show you this real quick, okay? Biden was vice president how many years ago? Okay. And that's when he supposedly sold out the country. Okay, got it. Trump was president after that. He's already been found guilty of 34 felonies. Why is it taking so long to prosecute Joe Biden, especially when Donald Trump was president and controlled the Department of Justice, right? He controlled the Department of Justice. He had Jeff Sessions, and then he had Bill Barr. Then he had an acting attorney general because Bill Barr quit, because Bill Barr said, I'm not going to steal an election. I'm not that corrupt, right? So how come that is? I'll tell you why. Because Biden didn't do anything. He didn't do anything illegal. His son was just convicted on a gun charge that could get him 20 years in the federal pen. And the man stands by the jury verdict and will not pardon his son, as hard as that is. Yeah, so it's like the same as Trump is the same is what it is. No, so there is no corruption with Biden. You have to manufacture some, because the amount of corruption that Trump's been engaged in through his entire life is so overwhelming that your brain will break under the weight of it if you accept it into your brain as fact. So there you have it. But, whenever somebody thinks that Biden's corrupt, your answer to them ought to be, well, Donald Trump was president for 4 years, and he controlled the Department of Justice. He picked the attorney generals, many of them, okay? And his whole answer to anything he didn't like was to tell Mark Esper, the Secretary of Defense, to shoot people in the leg, which he wouldn't do. But, okay. Patricia in Alabama.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
You are my lifeline.
Oh, thank you. Where are you? Where are you in Alabama?
I absolutely love you, and you keep me sane.
Where are you?
I'm in North Alabama.
Oh, God. All right.
Oh, yeah. The red glow around me is just so bright that I can't stand it.
Got to wear shades, huh?
Yeah. I was telling
Brett,
and I love him too, that remember back, it was either in 2015 or 2016 when Bannon was featured as the keynote speaker at CPAC for the first time ever. And he went in there and basically outlined Project 2025 for them.
Yeah.
Verbally.
Yeah.
And it was a shock because nobody thought he would be the keynote speaker, first of all.
Nobody thought that he was hygienic, and nobody thought that Pigpen would be allowed into a place like
Exactly.
that. Right.
And he just laid out this bloodlust version of, and I take them completely seriously.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't think that Trump is smart enough to have written this document. I mean, I think it was a combination of Bannon and Heritage and Steve Miller
definitely.
and all them.
Yeah.
But they're smart enough now to know which tools they can use to put, which levers they can pull to accomplish their goals.
Remember, Patricia, that Donald Trump did not think he was going to win, and he probably wouldn't have.
Oh, I know.
If it wasn't for, the New York field office sitting on Anthony Weiner's computer.
Exactly,
Comey.
Okay.
Right.
Comey.
So that, yeah, but you know who did that? That was Rudy Giuliani. That was the original crime. Okay?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Okay. So they didn't think they were going to win, and then they did. And so they were like, oh, my God, we need shock troops. Who's going to run this and who's going to run that? And how do we pick an attorney general? And how do we pick, an FBI and, whatever. So Donald Trump's like, I'll do a casting call, basically, right? And remember, Comey, he wanted him to walk across the room and how tall he was. He looked like he came from Central Casting and blah. Because Donald Trump is a reality TV star. That is all he is. That is all he ever was. Okay.
I know. He's like the carnival barker.
Right. And so they didn't know how to control the government and take it, to where Bannon wanted it to go, which was an authoritarian nightmare, right? A dystopian, episode of The Handmaid's Tale on steroids. So
there was a really good movie that came out, I think it was back in the 2000s, and it had Denzel Washington and Annette Bening and Tony Shalhoub.
I love that cast.
And it was about terrorism. Oh, and Bruce Willis.
Oh, wow.
And they had Denzel Washington and Tony Shalhoub were with the FBI. And there was a terrorist threat that Annette Bening had embedded herself. She was with the CIA, and she had embedded herself in with this Middle Eastern group,
The Siege,
that was a terrorist group. And so what happened was they did enact martial law, basically. And Bruce Willis was the general. And people just need to watch that movie if they want to see what's going to happen with bad actors, because he was the bad actor.
So, Patricia, Brett is saying it was The Siege?
The Siege in 1998. Does that sound familiar?
I think that's right.
Yeah. All right, we'll look it up real quick and make sure that people have something, to watch this weekend. So that's...
Yeah, but Trump is the one that's given all these slime balls permission to come out from under their rocks.
No doubt. No doubt you've got this. You totally have it. You understand it. So...
But trying to talk to these people is like trying to talk to a brick wall.
I know.
And the more you rationalize with them, the more angry they get.
Well, look, the only thing that will ever convince them is to live through it, and I don't want to. So, that's why I've given up on trying to convince them. It's not important to me anymore. It really isn't. What I care about is you. What I care about is my family, my child, her children.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what I care about. I can't care about people, no offense, who aren't even going to pick the president at this point. Okay, I can't. We have to concern ourselves with explaining what is, factually provable, demonstrably true to people in Wisconsin, to people in Michigan, to people in Nevada, to people in Arizona. I mean,
they're just now waking up to this.
Yeah. Well, they're not. They keep telling me in the media, Patricia. They keep telling me, well, they're still not paying attention yet.
Oh no, they're not. They're not laying it out like you do.
Well, they talk about stupid things, and they waste all this valuable time on the TV talking about, garbagey stuff instead of, saying, hey, there is this 950 pages called Project 2025, and what it actually envisions is a military takeover of blue states who won't comply with mass deportations, or will be even the people in red states who might be outraged at the sweeps that might be going on in local factories and poultry plants, in agrarian cultures, where you pick strawberries and tomatoes and apples, and they don't want you to understand what is, and I don't want to go through it. That's my whole goal, is not to go through it and let them think that, they missed out. Have a great weekend.